I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll call it 5:30. This is the fourth meeting in 2025. I'm Councillor Dave Bird. I'll be chairing this evening. The first matter is the adoption of the agenda. Everybody's had a chance. It's been circulated. Does anybody wish to discuss any amendments to that before we call the vote? Seeing none, can I ask Councillor McRae, please?
Move by myself, Councillor Isabel Ann McRae, that the agenda of the Committee of the Whole meeting for March the 4th, 2025 be adopted as presented.
Call the question. Those in favour? It's unanimous. The usual reminder of disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest that can be made now or at any point should it arise during the course of the meeting. Anybody at this point? Seeing none, I'll move on. Number 4 is public meetings. That's not scheduled. Adoption of the minutes. Again, they have been circulated. Anybody, any observations before we call that? No. That be carried. Councillor Waterfield, if you could.
Move by myself that the minutes of the regular Committee of the Whole meeting held on February the 4th, 2025 and February the 11th, 2025 be approved.
I'll call the question. Those in favour? That is unanimous too. So, moved on rapidly to delegations. So we have with us Stephanie Gray from the Lanark County Situation Table. And if that come forward right there, and the mic, you may want to move it a bit closer towards your mouth because
and lower the chair a little.
I know you can project, so it's
Oh, I'll make do.
I believe most of us know Stephanie from previous visits here or for other efforts inside the community. And you will have a timer up there, but I would remind you that you're the only delegation. So
okay. And I'm sorry, did you forward the slides or? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's been a long time, and I'm happy to be here to talk to you about the update to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for 2025 to 2029. If I go to the next slide, please. As Councillor Bird mentioned, I'm Stephanie Gray, and I'm with the Lanark County Situation Table and the Community Plan for Safety and Wellbeing. And I'll just give you a little bit of background around how we got to here. As you know, municipalities are mandated to complete these plans under the Community Safety and Policing Act. And the Act outlines a number of criteria to complete them, including membership of a multi-sectoral advisory committee, the types of consultations that need to happen, and then the mandate to establish priority risks and strategies, outcomes and measurables through evidence-based work. So our original plan was approved in 2019. The update has to be filed by July 1st, 2025. And I just want to point out that we've been really fortunate here, and in large part thanks to the town of Perth, we've had a series of grants that have held my position and enabled the work for this plan and a number of other programs in Lanark County and Smith Falls. So there's been provincial grants that have covered the costs leading up to this, which is a little unusual actually compared to other parts of the province. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background related to the Act. So this Act takes over from the Police Services Act. Our previous plan, or current one, is deemed to be prepared and adopted under the new Act, but it does have to be reviewed and revised by July 1st, 2025 under the new Act. And that pertains to the regulation that I'm showing there. Municipalities, there's only one regulation right now related to community safety and wellbeing plans, and it's to make sure that you publish once you adopt a plan within 30 days online and then in any other format you wish. And also that we need to review it 4 years after its adoption. Any plan that was adopted before 2021, like ours, has to be submitted by 2025, July 1st. Next slide, please. So here's just a quick overview of our advisory committee. You can see that we represent a number of different sectors as mandated, and those are the organizations that are affiliated with those sectors that kind of represent, a broad range of folks who are giving input into the plan. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I should note on the previous one, just that there are 2 municipal council reps as well, one being Councillor Brian Dowdle, or Deputy Brian Dowdle from Beckwith, who's there on behalf of Lanark County municipalities, and Councillor Peter McKenna for Smiths Falls. So in terms of the approach and methodology for getting to where we are with the current plan, reviewing the original plan and all of the progress updates that were circulated was really a key piece. We had a lot of information in that last plan, took a lot of really good steps forward with that. So we began working on that in conjunction with the advisory committee in 2023. First, we identified some key theme areas, which is a little bit different from what we did before. We had 12 risk areas the last time, so we have 4 key themes. We did community consultation in the form of a couple of surveys. One was a community survey that had 393 responses, and an agency survey that was circulated to our community partners that received 37 responses. We held a virtual partner day with 23 folks representing quite a range of community partners present for that. The Council, Police Services Board, and Community Policing Advisory Committee focus session had 9 attendees representing 6 municipalities, and Councillor Waterfield was there for that. And we had focus groups with the Successful Aging Advisory Committee, the Lanark County Child and Youth Services Committee, and the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Advisory Committee. And look at me rolling through those acronyms. We also collected a lot of data as Statistics Canada and numerous other resources and reports for review. And we identified next the assets and gaps that we found based on all of that consultation and evidence, drafted some outcome statements, worked on the goals, measures, and outcomes, and that culminated in a draft that was approved by the advisory committee on February 10th. And now we're taking it to all of you, the local municipalities, for approval. Next slide, please. I just wanted to touch on the outcome statements that we had, because I think this really demonstrates where we would like to be ultimately and what's kind of driving us forward. So we've set that Lanark County and Smiths Falls is a community of opportunity and equity for diverse populations. We looked at, we want to see basic needs met for housing, livable income, and nutritious food for our populations, where we respect the legacy of stewardship by the Indigenous people who lived here before us and continue to care for the earth in a way that will sustain it for 7 generations. We're a community of collaboration, which is really evident, where we work together to benefit our residents in order to prevent harm. We want to see a robust range of health and social services that are accessible in various formats within a period of time that's reasonable to prevent emergency or crisis situations, and a community of healthy relationships that respect and welcome neighbors, where people look out for one another and are safe from violence in all its forms. Next slide, please. So here's an overview of our themes and pillars. It's organized into the 4 themes of affordability and quality of health, health, violence against persons, and then priority populations and diversity. And then there's pillars on each of those themes. Some of them are new, and I'm going to go through them briefly when I talk about the goals associated with the plan. So with each pillar, that's where we're showing our evidence and the assets. And I always like to really emphasize the fact that these plans aren't about reinventing the wheel. It's about looking at the assets that we have and building on them. We have some tremendous assets in our community to build on, which makes it a little easier. There also looks at the risks and issues and the data, along with the goals and measures and strategies that we'll be working to implement. Next slide, please. Some highlights, as I mentioned, building off the previous plan was a really good starting point. It became clear right off the bat, and this is no surprise, that housing, food security, and income are a big priority. And if we can get a handle on that, that's going to mitigate a lot of risks in other areas as well, we know. We have a strong record of collaboration. It's a huge asset for our community. We work really well together in a lot of ways. We also found a lot of evidence around issues related to children and youth. So we're bringing a lot of attention to that, and also the importance of recognizing and building on those assets that we have. Next slide, please. So in terms of the pillars associated with the theme areas, under affordability and quality of life, we're starting off with income and employment, which is looking, of course, at poverty, employment, the things like affordable childcare, better access to digital resources for people to expand services, for housing and homelessness, lofty goal of eradicating homelessness, increasing affordable housing, food insecurity and food access. The health unit played a really big role in helping to address root causes for food insecurity, which is highlighted through the plan. Transportation is looking at increasing options. The climate change and environment pillar is new in this plan. So it's looking at actual climate action. And there was also real appetite in the feedback that we got for community involvement. People really want to know what they can do to help. So that was very evident. And also incorporating Indigenous teachings into the work. Belonging and civic engagement is also new, and it focuses on reducing isolation, increasing social inclusion, and volunteerism, and also strengthening a connection between municipalities and the work of the community safety and wellbeing plan. So that's something that I hope to work with each council on moving forward. Next slide, please. Under health, it's divided into physical and mental health, and the physical health includes things like access to care, so primary, long-term, and end-of-life care, which was, really a huge discussion during our consultations. So goals include more diversion from emergency, more information sharing. People really want to know what resources are available, and better information about wait times and service expectations, because we recognize we might not at a local level be able to control the healthcare system, but we can do better at indicating what's available and when you might be able to access it. Mental health and substance use is looking at more resources for complex mental health and addictions, and there has been some good news already on that front for that, and also improved reported mental health in children, which we found a lot of evidence for. Next slide.
Stephanie, just as you do that, the time has expired, but ignore that. This is a mandated document that we're.
Okay.
I've don't really have to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was eating for 15 minutes, so thank you. So violence against persons, the goals, it's really important to note we have this pillar for sexual assault, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and gender-based violence based on Lanark County's declaration of IPV as an epidemic, and that it ties in with the Renfrew inquest recommendations. So we had a pillar before, we still do. And it's looking at reducing incidents, supporting victims, survivors, and also evolving into a zero femicide community. For hate-motivated crime, looking at increasing cultural competency to reduce incidents of hate crime. And then for children, elderly, and others, looking at specific populations and reducing incidents in those populations. This next one's pretty easy to summarize because although it identifies a lot of different populations, the goal is basically the same to for each population to provide support in the community for them, for children and youth, seniors and elderly, Indigenous, 2S LGBTQIA+, New Canadians and immigrants, and those with accessibility needs. under the Act, there are some sections that explain quite well some of the council responsibilities when a plan is adopted. So the first one I already kind of mentioned because it's tied to the regulation, that's around the publication piece. The next one I highlighted because I think it states really clearly about, municipalities taking action where the plan requires it to take action, and also encouraging others to take action to move things forward. The next one, section 254, talks about monitoring, evaluating, and reporting on the effect of the plan. There isn't a regulation for that yet, but if there is one, we have things in place through progress updates, and that's something that this role could, be responsible for in conjunction with the advisory committee. Section 255 references reviewing every 4 years, and then 256 talks about providing information to the ministry around the preparation and so forth with the plan. There's not a regulation for that, but of course the plan would be submitted to the ministry and we would follow up with any requests they have. Next slide, please. The key actions include, of course, adopting the plan for submission by July 1st. That is your indication that you approve for us to move forward with its implementation and to be champions of the plan as well. Any actions that are specific to the municipality would always be brought back here for consideration. I'm not just going to go off and do things. And some of those might include, as I mentioned, working with councils on enhancing connections with the community safety and wellbeing plan, but also advocacy tends to be a big one as well that municipalities have taken a role in. The implementation teams will actually do a lot of the work with the plan, moving it forward, and the community partners. A question I often get is, well, what do municipal councils have to do? And often yours is the leadership and guidance role and advocacy role. A lot of the heavy lifting comes back to the community partners, in terms of some of those specific actions. And then we come back, we'll do the annual reports and report anything to the province that needs to happen and revisit in 4 years. And then the last slide, second last slide, is the suggested motion for your consideration for adopting the plan. And then subject to any questions you have, that's basically my presentation.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any questions? It'll be Councillor Waterfield, then Your Worship, and then Councillor McRae.
And excuse me if I read the captions, my hearing is terrible. So if I'm not looking at you, that's why.
Thank you. Through the chair, Stephanie, thank you for an excellent presentation on a very important process. 2 questions, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how advisory committee members are chosen. For example, in the community organization and youth section, I'm surprised that the Lanark County Community Justice Group is not in that particular group. When I look at climate and environment, I'm surprised that the Climate Network Lanark is not included. So I'm just curious what the process is for member organizations to be part of these advisory groups.
It kind of, through the chair, it kind of goes back really just to when we started and determining who had an interest in being involved. So going back to 2016. And although community justice isn't a member, I consult with them. There's there's several references in the plan based on information from community justice as well. And I gather a lot of information through networking with a lot of the different community organizations and committees that I sit on, which, helps to feed information into the plan. And you mentioned, the climate. We reached out to the county based on the information that they've been providing through county council and the work that they're doing there as well. And I think part of the issue is just we could have like 50 people sitting around the table. So we've really just tried to focus on having sector representation, and then if there's somebody obvious that we need to consult with for a specific issue, we reach out and get information through interviews or data reports that they have.
Okay, great. Thank you. one more question, if I may, Chair.
Quick follow-up, yes?
Follow-up question is, I'm not clear on how often and who is responsible for measuring results.
Through the chair, there's no rule that we know of, like there's no regulation for that. So what we've been doing is an annual report that measures our progress and then puts a report out to stakeholders, including council, police services board, and community partners as well. So the measures are outlined in the plan that we will be, using to evaluate our progress, and we'll be aiming to do that on an annual basis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Worship.
Yes, fantastic report. The detail is just incredible. It must have taken you months to write it. I guess my question is somewhat similar to Councillor Waterfield is, the reporting function when something is accomplished. I noticed that Brian Dowdle from County Council is responsible for that sort of thing. Just, how do you pull it all together?
So through the chair, that's where I think the reference in the plan to working with municipalities in terms of tying the plan a little bit more to some of your strategic goals and things like that, and looking for opportunities to have it more often included in your agendas for updates and things like that. I think that's a possibility, maybe having come a couple times a year to give updates or something. We're still working out some of those details, but when you mentioned Councillor Dowdle, I think it would be good, for instance, for the rep for the county council that maybe there'd be an agenda item where he could report on some of those items. So we're looking at opportunities like that where there will be more information provided through municipalities and through those annual reports as well.
Like someone from each council would,
I can.
I said ideally someone from each council would pull together a report once a year.
Yeah, we can look at that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCray.
Through you, Chair, to Stephanie, and this kind of is in connection with the previous questions that have been asked, but it has to do with our role as councillors, and that is what I heard was it is our role to advocate for this program. And I would just be interested in different ways, Stephanie, that you feel that we as councillors could advocate for this particular program.
Through the chair, I think that's where increased communication between the advisory committee and the councils will help, because if you have a better idea of what's going on and what is needed, then it might be more obvious what you can do to help. One thing that we've been doing fairly often over the last 4 or 5 years is reaching out to county council when there's opportunities for delegations at the provincial conferences. So a number of delegations that have come forward have been partly influenced through items that have been in the community safety and wellbeing plan, and we want to continue those sorts of connections as well. But I think again that it comes back to working with the councils to determine what kind of role you can play and how we can better tie in what's happening in the plan with what's going on here too.
Follow up.
If I may add one additional question. So this is relatively new to me because I'm a new councillor, and I'm just wondering, so how are other municipalities advocating in Lanark County and Smith Falls? What are they doing to advocate this program to?
Well, again, through the chair, I think it comes down to the specific projects that might come up. So I don't think, like I say, I think a lot of the work that happens with the plan really comes back to the community agencies. So many of the the progress updates that we have will be influenced by work that's been done, for instance, by Lander County Social Services and homelessness and statistics related to MCERT between the OPP and Lander County Mental Health or things like that. So a lot of that kind of work happens at the community partner level. And we can communicate when we see things that we think need municipal advocacy. That's where we'd want to bring it back to the councils to see if there's something that could be done.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take the chance now, if I may. Very happy to see that collaboratives are still working.
Yes.
Because I haven't forgotten that Lanark County was ahead of the game on this. A collaborative approach to problems, whether it and through the situation table. I'm glad
Yes.
that's still functioning. I have a couple of questions purely in relation to the two new aspects here. One being climate action and the other being civic engagement. The first one, civic engagement, I think that's a pretty obvious one for the municipalities to be getting involved with. Just off the top of my head, I'm already thinking that we have started a program here trying to engage youth at the high school in relation to how government works, local government works. So I'm going to throw that out there that possibly that's an area where municipalities can actually
Yes.
contribute.
Yeah.
And
That's a good example. Thank you.
and climate action, intrigued. Words intrigue me. All right. So it's a title of something. Climate action there. We, as a matter of course now, through our asset management and all the rest of it, deal with climate change mitigation. That's something that we're already planning for and have to account for in what we do.
Yes.
Would that form part of that? Because the work's already being done in that
Yes.
aspect of it.
Yes, it would. And in fact, I'm pretty sure there's a reference in there to the work that's being done by municipalities in terms of the mitigation and things. So again, it's building on those different assets. A number of the actions really related to citizens wanting to know what they could do. So there'd be, increased communication and education efforts and things like that to try to get everybody on board and working towards the goal.
My last comment will be that you mentioned at the beginning a number of successful grants that were obtained. I'm going to suspect I know who prepared most of those grants and submitted them.
Yeah.
You right? Yeah.
Yes, they call me the grant writer.
It's one of Stephanie's many strengths is grant preparation. So, any other questions from council? Thank you for your presentation. There is going to be a motion in just a moment. So
Great.
have
Thank
to
you
wait
very
for that.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Stephanie.
So unless there's further comment or observations from council, can I ask the deputy mayor to motion?
Moved by myself, whereas the corporation of the council of the town of Perth is committed to community safety and well-being for its citizens, and whereas part XVI, section 248, subsection 1 of the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019, Statutes of Ontario 2019, Chapter 1, Schedule 1 states that every municipality shall prepare and by resolution adopt a community safety and well-being plan. Now therefore be resolved, the corporation of the town of Perth adopt a community plan for safety and well-being for Lanark County and the town of Smith Falls, 2025 to 2029, as presented by Stephanie Gray, coordinator of Lanark County Situation Table, Community Plan for Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee.
Any further discussion or observations, council? I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's passed unanimously. Thank you. We move on to correspondence, and this item is for information. Put it on the floor. I'd ask the mayor, Your Worship, if you could read the motion.
Sorry, you want me to read the motion?
Yes, please. It's in relation for receiving and then we can have discussion.
By the committee of the whole, it was resolved. As recommended by Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth received for information, the correspondence, Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, ready to work, ready to grow, election priorities, dated February 18th, 2025.
Now, there's no presentation on this by specific, that it's documentation that we've had a chance to read. Any questions or observations from council before I call the question? No, thank you. I'll call the question then. Those in favour of receiving this? And that's unanimous. Thank you. There's no request for actions on it, so we move to staff reports. And the first one is promotion and education cost sharing with Circular Materials Ontario. And that's Grant Mahan and Crystal Reinhardt are going to be dealing with that. But can I ask Councillor Smith to move the motion so we can have discussion?
Moved by myself as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth receive for information the 2025 Blue Box Promotion and Education Cost Sharing Partnership with Circular Materials Ontario as presented in Report 2025-CAL-4.1.
Dr. Mahan, do you have any presentation in relation to that? Okay. Questions?
I do have a
Councillor.
question for Director Mahan, if I may. So Grant, I read the report and I mean, I can see, I understand why the province is doing this. I can see how it's going to evolve. I mean, it was a very well laid out presentation. I did get a little bit stuck on, because it talked about under the current process, there's a responsibility for cost, and under the revised process, the cost has to be borne by the manufacturers. In a nutshell, can you put a dollar amount on what this is going to do for us as a community from a cost standpoint?
Through the chair, I think you're asking the question that's sort of next month, which I plan on giving an overview of the transition. Okay. This is simply to cost share on the production of the material to educate the town of Perth residents on how the program is. I did plant the seed in this report just to elevate council's awareness that the town of Perth will be out of the Blue Box program at the start of July. Yeah. And I want to show the partnership with the province and to that linkage with the community that we already know of how the program will exist. Essentially, for the balance of 2025, we'll have the same materials, the same routing, the same timing. Right. But after 2026, the province is taking over the full Blue Box program, which they've contracted out, and they will probably develop a provincially wide uniform recycling program because every municipality now is doing piecemeal or their own version of that. So my intent of this is just to say we're doing our diligence for the municipality or for the residents and just showing that conveyance of how we're getting out of the business of recycling and handing it over to the province.
So you will answer my question next month?
Yes, I through the chair, I have genuine concerns with predominantly businesses that are participating in the Blue Box program because the Blue Box, since its inception in the 1980s, was a residential program, and I keep using that word. And so we have to help and assist the businesses some way finding another alternative to that. It's not a big catchment, but there's a number of alternatives that we have for that. So it's just to educate council because I've learned from my neighbors that have already transitioned, Carlton Place, Elmont, Kempville, some of their stumbling blocks they've had. So I want to have a comprehensive report so you're well educated when that date comes in the 1st of July, some of the pressures that we're going to have to stand firm on, essentially.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, Your Worship.
Thank you. Maybe this is a question that you can't answer yet either, but I mean, in an ideal world, this sounds great. The producers pay for taking care of the waste products, but how would that actually work? The government is going to invoice whomever for what they produce in the way of recyclable goods?
Through the chair, that's part of my report for next month. The producers have always relinquish some of the profits to the stewardship or Stewardship Ontario. And those dollars have been allocated out to municipalities as subsidy for the recycling program. And like I cited in my report, for Perth, it's only 48%. So the other 52% is borne by the taxpayers of Perth. So this is going to be a significant item off of our budget list. But there's a lot of strategy to this that I'd rather wrap up in a comprehensive report rather than do it as piecemeal.
Super. Thank you. Okay, so the motion is on the floor to receive that. I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. The next is local improvement charge bylaw, Better Homes Lanark Residential Retrofit Program. And that will be dealt with by the clerk, Amanda Noel. Could I ask you, please, Deputy Mayor, to put the motion on the floor?
Moved by myself as recommended by committee of the whole, be resolved the Council of Town of Perth pass bylaw number 5XX, being a bylaw to adopt a local improvement charge residential retrofit program as presented in report 2025 COW 4.2.
Thank you. So, any questions, observations about your worship?
I'm not sure who might answer it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure who might answer this question, but when this came up at the county council, there was a cost to the municipalities. But since then, there's been a grant. So I don't know if there's any cost to the municipalities or not.
So through the chair, so there is no cost to the municipality other than for an administrative fees associated with processing the payments through the collection of taxes, which the municipalities will be receiving a certain amount to offset that administrative cost. But as far as the funding goes, the funding was, the county was awarded the funding from FCM. So it's nothing other than administrative related costs are coming from the town or lower tier municipalities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, observations? I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. The next is Heritage Perth Architectural Conservation Award Program 2024 nominees. That'll be Director McNally. But can I ask Councillor Bolt, please, to put the motion on the floor?
Be happy to. Moved by myself as recommended by the committee of the whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth approve the following individuals for recognition under the town's Heritage Perth Architectural Conservation Award Program for 2024. 1, Ron Shaw, and number 2, Arlene Stafford Wilson. And further, that the recipients be invited to attend the March 18th, 2025 council meeting to receive their certificates as presented in report 2025-COW-4.3.
Any questions or observations by council? Councillor Waterfield.
Chair, just a quick comment. I can't think of two people that are more deserving of this recognition. They both have made and continue to make outstanding contributions to our community. And I look forward to seeing that presentation.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that is unanimous. The next is Town Communications Update 2024, Summary and 2025 Communications Goals. Again, Director McNally, and I believe you have a PowerPoint for this one. Can I just, yeah, I can have the motion first. Councillor Bolt, that's you again.
All right, moved by myself as recommended by the committee of the whole, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Perth receive for information the Town Communications Update 2024 Summary and 2025 Communications Goals as presented in Report 2025 COW-4.4.
So there is a presentation.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you, Council, for just taking the time to listen to our communications review for the year. I just want to give full credit to Crystal Reinhardt. She's our communications coordinator, and she set some really big goals for 2024. And I'm going to take a few minutes just to go over what was accomplished in that time, because last year from Council at the beginning of the year, I remember you saying, you know, you want to you want more clarity in terms of what kind of communication tools that we're doing and utilizing and the strategies to implement and utilize those tools. So we worked hard last year to kind of bring some of those platforms to life, and then that will then translate to what we're going to plan on doing for 2025. So you can go through this yourselves, but I think I just want to first start off by going down to our social media stats. So I think that's a few down, Michael.
Very impressive.
So the previous slides, thank you. The previous slides just outlined what we do, which I went through last year. So if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer. But really, our major platforms are Facebook and Instagram that we utilized. We also have an X account, Twitter, and LinkedIn, which we use mostly for recruitment and retention for staff and employment opportunities. But if we go to the next slide, this is where we can see the numbers for our Facebook and Instagram likes. So as of the end of 2024, we had 8,000 Facebook likes for the town of Perth and 3,600 Instagram likes for the town of Perth site. So they're different than our Perth tourism, which is doing really well on Instagram. You know, they're more on an even keel, but tonight I'm just going to focus on the town of Perth social media platform. And I want to just highlight some trends to you. So you can see that with the age category, we have 75% are female followers on Facebook. So that's just an interesting statistic. And it's about the same stat for Instagram as well. And you can see where the majority of the age group is. On Facebook is between 35 and 65 plus. Like, it's pretty even keel. So we're reaching a really wide demographic. But you can see the majority of our followers are female. So if you go to the next slide, please. So here is just our increase over the year. We added almost 2,200 new followers over a year and another 500 followers on Instagram. So what I'm seeing from these stats is you can see that Instagram's just increasing on our followers and just what that trend looks like. But it's just a big same engagement jump as well for Facebook. We go to the next slide, please. So here is our engagement. So engagement looks at two different things on Facebook. So we have a reach. So that is basically what that stat is telling us is how many people did you reach over the course of the year? And so we're down 0.8%. But I'm not too worried about that because the content interactions on the right-hand side is what is a great thing. So it's one thing if you go and put flyers out around town, right? But you really want to see how many people are going to read the flyers or how many people are actually going to then, go buy a ticket for the flyer that you have out around town. And it's the same thing for this. So we can reach a bunch of people, but when people start interacting, that then gets more conversations going, or it gets more people to see it based on the algorithm and how Facebook then puts it in front of other people's eyes, because Facebook goes, oh, this must be important because you're getting more content interactions. So we have a 52.8% increase in content interactions, and that's a good thing. So we're happy with those numbers. And if you go to the next slide, the same trend is happening in Instagram. So we're down 28% in our reach, but we're up 100% in our content interactions. So we do that by actually resharing, posting to our stories, which a post is a permanent post on social media, whereas our stories are up for 24 hours, and we get a lot more of engagement through that mechanism. So we're seeing some good trends there, but I think what you can also anticipate with that is that content is great. You always want it to be positive content and positive feedback and comments, right? But that's not always the case. So that increased content therefore increases our staff time and resources to have to navigate and respond to comments, inquiries, and messages that come through our social media channels. So we're trying to reflect on what does that mean for us as a municipality from a communication standpoint moving forward. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Michael. Any questions on those numbers before we're good? Okay. So Crystal is the one who actively manages our town social media presence. So anytime, there's any comments that happen and you see responses, that's Crystal working behind the scenes in making that happen. And she has a proactive engagement strategy. And so that's what I was talking about, the increase of 53% for content interactions and 100% with Instagram. A lot of that is due to Crystal's work that she's doing there. Next slide, please. But that doesn't mean that we don't look where else we're putting our information. So we put out 38 press releases last year, and then we put it out to our distribution lists. And we also have our notices in the local media, and we're looking at cost-effective solutions to replace, we used to do Municipal Connect in the Perth Courier. Just with the pricing for it in our local newspaper market, and radio and traditional media, we're just trying to see about how we can make that, a bit more cost-effective with our budget. So I'll hit on that later on. So 2024, just quickly, that we launched a new website. So Crystal basically worked on relaunching our website, and we did it not by choice. So our content management system, the company that we had hired, moved to a new content management system. So we had no choice but to go over there, and that required basically moving houses. And in that time, when you move houses, you actually start to declutter and you clean things up and you donate some things. And you reorganize the space. So Crystal took that opportunity when we moved houses to actually renew the look of the website and the content that we put out there. So she used our numbers in terms of seeing how many page visitors we have on each page to help kind of make decisions that allowed us to then put together the current format as is. So we're really happy with that. But we're seeing, if you can go to the next slide, please, Michael, the Engage Perth social platform as well. So I know I've gone through this already with you, but you can just see what our 2024 highlights are. We launched it in the middle of the year in May 2024, but in that time, over that 6-7 month period, we launched 9 projects on there, including active transportation and the Cockburn Street reconstruction. We had 2,600 unique visitors explore that platform. We had 140 project follows, so you can actually choose to follow the projects. And then we had 8,700 file downloads. So what that means is they're going to go in and look at, let's say, active transportation and download one of the files to look at it. So that just goes to show you got 2,600 people coming and they're downloading 8,700 files. So we're having a really good conversion rate in terms of getting the engagement that we're looking for. So people are accessing the information in a really impactful way. So we're going to continue with this platform. Absolutely. And you see the billboards. So we'll keep going there throughout town, and our ads. This is our Perth tourism marketing, our Perth night market marketing. Crystal also does the vendor coordination. So we're just highlighting that as well with the Perth night market. And our internal communications. So we focused on this a lot as well. So making sure that we had internal communications happening with town staff and council to be informed and aligned. So we got some great feedback from both council and staff in terms of when we send out those council summaries, they say, thanks, that's great. It actually gives us context about what's happening around the council horseshoe and what that looks like for any decisions that are made for staff moving forward for projects or budgets or anything like that. So it's been some good feedback. Next slide, please. So 2025 communication goals, we're not going to call it a coasting year, but actually what we're going to call it is we've built the baseball field, and now we're just gonna play the game. So we've got all the tools in there, and we're now actually going to take that to the next step in expanding our community outreach, really polishing up how we're doing our public engagement, because we've built that framework, and now we really want to actually have that toolkit to provide staff with best practices and resources. So it gives them the knowledge to have that meaningful community input on the key projects and decisions. We have a crisis communications toolkit that we want to put together a plan just to help us have clarity on protocols and procedures during emergencies, and expanding our community outreach. So what we're going to look at this year is just, we do it sporadically, but we don't do it consistently, is we mail out tax bills. So let's use that opportunity to then connect with residents in more meaningful ways. So we actually get that flyer in front of their hands. So it's another way to connect with our residents. So next slide, please. That's it. Any questions?
Yes, any questions? Your worship, and then Councillor Waterfield.
I'm blown away. Those numbers are just fantastic. And now what the numbers translate into is that people are reading that, and then they'll want to come here and then they'll see the absolutely amazing stuff that you do, like Frost and Fire and so on. So my question is, various things go in various types of media like Instagram, Facebook, so on. So something like, for example, when the announcement was made that Algonquin was going to close, and people, of course, felt that council's got to do something, sort of thing. And, what we could do was kind of limited, but we did do something. So how would you get out news about something like that?
Sure. So that's a great case study as an example for getting a statement out, right? So there's different approaches that you take. If you want community engagement and you want people to fill out a survey, you're going to do it differently than if you're making a statement. So we made a decision in terms of what kind of strategy or statement do we want to make, and then you roll it out to the different audiences in different ways. So we have a press release that we put together, and then it goes out to our media distribution list so that hopefully they'll pick up a story. And then if we want, we give an opportunity at the end of every press release. We say, here's who you contact for more information. So I believe we had the CAO on at that one. Then we put it out through social media as well. And then we took it and said internally, we had internal conversations about what further steps do we want to take. So that looks like, the CEO and the deputy mayor going to the board of directors meeting. And then the next plan for that is, okay, we did that. We want to demonstrate the support to keep it in the community. So we're then going to do another follow-up communications plan to ensure that we're demonstrating our support to keep the college within the town of Perth. So we use the media, and then we put it on our website, the press release as well, and then we put it out to social media as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Waterfield.
Through you, Chair, quick comment and a question. I think that Engage Perth is an absolutely superb addition to our toolbox. I've received multiple positive comments from citizens, so I think that was a major milestone for us this past year. Looking at this year in terms of goals, crisis communication is one of the goals. It was stated that we'd be getting an update throughout the year. I'm just curious as to where we are at this point and when we could expect an update.
For the crisis communications plan. So it's a great question. So yesterday, Crystal came to me with a Gantt chart that's printed out, and it basically has all of her projects down the line, and it demonstrates to me what she's going to work on throughout each quarter. So if I'm correct, I believe she's looking to do that in, I want to say May, but I might be lying. So it's just my memory isn't serving me well, but I can look into that and refresh my memory because we were reviewing a bunch of different projects, but it's going to be coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McRae.
Through you, Chair. Kathy, I have two questions. First of all, in our social media venues that we use or platforms that we use, as well as our Engage and website, do we have direct link to the BIA
Through social media?
through any of those or all of those?
So, and if we look at relationship building on social media, it's kind of like doing some supportive promotion. So with the BIA, they have their own pages. And so whenever they post something or they post a story, that 24-hour post, we'll reshare it usually, or a lot of the times, if it's related to their own content. So they'll do their own. So let's say they're promoting, the local businesses and the deals going on. They'll do that. But then whenever they have something come up, we'll either use Perth Tourism, our Facebook and Instagram page, and reshare on ours. Or if it's related to the town of Perth, let's say they're doing their strategic plan, and we want to reshare that out. We'll make a decision in terms of what, how does it relate to the town of Perth governance and operations or Perth tourism, and make that decision. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason I'm asking that is because as we grow, we know that economic development is going to be a key driver. And I'm also wondering if there's any way that we might be able to reach out to the Perth and District Chamber of Commerce as well through some form of a linkage. I know they have their own websites, but we are so connected in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. And they often ask me that question. So I just wanted to share that with you. The other thing is, I would agree with Councillor Waterfield on Engage. I've heard a lot of really positive response to that. When we have, and maybe this is going to come, maybe this comes under the crisis management piece that we're going to be moving forward. When we have concerns regarding development, because there's so much development and so many projects taking place in the town of Perth, how do we ensure that we are ahead of the curve in terms of, I think a lot of it's more education than anything else. People feeling fearful because they don't know. So how within this plan, or where within this plan, do we ensure that we are educating people and so they're in tune with what our town is and our council is trying to accomplish in terms of development?
So that's a great question. If you go back up one slide, Michael, please. That's our goal for strengthening public engagement. And so one example is when Joanna and Michael went and did that Public Information Center on Development 101. What our team did was review the PowerPoint presentation and then work. I think Crystal spent 20 to 30 hours helping to facilitate that, just in supporting bringing that out in terms of from a communications lens. So if there's something about development, I know Joanna is very committed to bringing out those educational opportunities. So she did the first one this year. It was really well received. And then that presentation, that slide deck, becomes an evergreen piece of content. And what that means is we can put it up on our website and send it out to people, or have a link so that people, if they weren't able to attend that event, they still have access to that information in a way that's comprehensive. We call it pedestrianizing the language, right? So if you're walking down the street, you can talk to a pedestrian about that information. And then I know Joanna has further plans to then do more public engagement opportunities about development, because we are getting a lot of questions, and she's identified that. And based on her experience, she understands that, like you're saying, the more proactive you are, the better. So I think that's a great question, because it's something that's coming down for this year.
If I just might add one thing, that presentation that Michael and Joanna gave, we just saw the incredible impact it had in terms of that group that was very, very vocal in regards to KVAN. So I just thought that was an incredible effort made by our staff to do that. And I really do think that, as I said before, if we can stay ahead of the curve in terms of educating, because there is so much happening out there, you know, in every facet of municipal government, and as well, especially here in Perth in terms of development. Thank you.
Yeah, Your Worship.
Just wanted to make a comment. The more of our own stuff we get out there, the more it counteracts the misinformation that's out there. The misinformation that's out there about KVAN is just absolutely crazy. So, yeah, we need to be out there frequently.
Deputy Mayor.
So Kathy, I often see on Facebook, an organization will put out a positive post about the work they're doing. And of course, people have to have negative comments about everything that everybody does. So I'm just wondering, how do you guys have any plans to address that with the town of Perth? Because I have noticed sometimes Perth puts out what we're doing, educating the public and stuff, but I just worry sometimes about the amount of staff time and the effect it has on staff to keep going over and over and over issue and trying to educate certain people. I don't necessarily need an answer from you, but sometimes I worry about the staff to try to keep justifying all the good work we're doing, and you keep running the negative people. I'm just wondering. So our friends have just cut the comment sections off. They read our post and there's no comments anymore because they just had it with sellers. But it's something you guys overlook at.
So it's a good point. I think in terms of the stats I gave about the content interactions really demonstrate where those comments are coming in. So you do want to encourage comments because that means people are listening and people are reading. But we're seeing a trend, two trends, staff burnout in terms of just responding to those comments in a way, or, you know, having to hide comments that are derogatory because it doesn't align with our social media policy is a 24/7 job. So how do you address that? There's different organizations that are, OPP, for instance, has just shut down comments because they defined that they weren't effective. And so it's a growing trend across municipalities in terms of turning it off and having a conversation internally about what value are those comments bringing. We're putting information out. And I think if there's a way that we can put information out and still give a call to action at the end of every post to tell people where to get more information or who to contact, it still is conducive. So we're definitely exploring those options.
Good point.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, the motion is on the floor to receive that. I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is CAO and Director departmental updates. They've all been circulated. You had a chance to read them. Any questions arising from council members? Deputy Mayor.
I don't have a question, but I got an invitation from Grant last week to meet the entire, all the teams on the environmental services, and I started on the, so that all the work. Now, how many actual clouds of snow? It was 1,300. How many two snow dumps we just had, or is that just one? Like, I was amazed at the work that everybody's doing.
During the first storm, we took over 1,300 loads off, and the second storm, it was over 1,800 loads. So we're doing about 350 loads a night.
Yeah.
So we fill a truck in about 90 seconds. So we 7 to 9 trucks in a rotating pattern, and they just keep going every 90 seconds. So if you want to witness the scale of what those snow is, you can look at the snow dump on North Street or go on Industrial Road and see the giant piles of snow.
And the second comment I'll make is just when I was listening to the different guys talking about the responsibilities, I know you were lots involved in the water main break. I mean, there's the single water main break and sort of getting out of all the documentation that goes with a water main break. And it's pretty significant. Like, you know, we're kind of think the pipe with the driver really picks a pipe, but it's a huge job and you can work that goes into this thing. So anyway, I really appreciate having a chance to talk. I don't understand what we're going to talk about, but that's fine. But I was pretty amazed to do with 1,800 professionals in it. I really thought
Yeah. And that's out on our social media, right? Yeah. Councillor Waterfield.
Through the chair, you know, we just had an excellent discussion about communication, and we've just heard now some fascinating statistics, and I think they should be communicated to our citizens. I'm dumbfounded as the amount of loads of snow that our environmental services team has collected. So I think that's valuable information to send out there. And thank you. Wow.
Anyone else? Councillor McRae.
I was just going to, through you, Chair, I was just going to say the very same thing, Council Waterfield, and as well, comment that was made up, that was brought up by our Deputy Mayor in regards to what is actually involved when a water main breaks. What are all the steps? Like, how many staff are involved in that kind of a thing? And we're also talking about a very old infrastructure.
Right.
You know, a crumbling infrastructure, actually. A lot of replacement, I bet, involved in that. So, yeah, I think that in these times, that's important information to share with our communities.
The door's been opened on the water mains. So I'll ask the question. And if you can't answer it right now, I understand because it's coming out of the blue. We've had 2 water main breaks on top of one another. Regular budgeting for your department would cover how many per year before it comes out of reserves, or do they all come out reserves?
It's not really a budgetary item. It's folded into a regular operational and maintenance component, but we do factor approximately 5 leaks a year. We're generally running around 3. but they're usually addressed within 24 hours as far as diagnosing it from the water plant from water demand until they're actually repaired. I would add during these last two water main breaks was coincidentally at the time of the peak of both snow events. So I just want to reiterate, we have a field team, and the deputy mayor confirms this after the discussion, of 6 people. So if you have 6 people doing snow, 6 minus 6 is what?
Yeah.
So what happens is who draws short straw and is going to continue to work for the 12 to 20 hours it takes to get that water main repaired. In both cases, both water main breaks were repaired by 2 staff. So are you going to be up on the top assisting, or are you going to be in the hole? So very lean and mean and very competent staff.
Thank you. You beat me to the punch on my next question. Thank you. No. Your worship.
I just wanted to pass along, now that we know exactly how much snow there was, that one of the downtown businesses complimented the town on how quickly the snow was cleared. Not an easy job. So everybody knows now, not just I passed along to Grant.
Great job.
Okay. Unless there's anybody else had any further questions in relation to the reports by new business, there is none. The next meeting is regular committee of the whole, Tuesday, April the 8th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. And that will be Councillor Bolt in the chair. I'll ask the question in case there's someone listening somewhere. Any questions from media?
Brian Turner with My FM. No, none for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Case that Mary Judy Brown is taking leave. Is she back in her normal duties?
She is sitting in at the meeting today, and I think that's as far as we need to address that at the moment.
Is the town putting out a release about that? I'm curious because there was a release put out about when she was taking.
I at this point, that would be handled somewhere else, but the mayor is clearly here present today, participating in the meeting. And I'm not prepared to discuss it beyond that at this point. I think it's inappropriate. Thank you. Thanks.
Has the town heard from residents, or will the town be putting out a statement about the Perth Lions Club ending its Scarlet Festival after 25 years?
I think we would probably have some kind of discussion now that you've raised it. I'm sure it will come up during the official council meeting. It hasn't come up here at this point. I think we will all have something to say in relation to that should a council member raise it. Now that you have asked the question, I think it's probably on our radar to have some kind of discussion. And I appreciate that. So look forward to the next council meeting as in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Sure, and I guess on that, we were aware of it, and we're having some discussions behind the scenes. I'm not sure it's something the town would be able to take on, but as the chair said, something for a future discussion. I did get, I guess just as Kathy talked about all the social media draw that we get, but I had calls from garlic growers and producers in Southern Ontario saying, is someone going to take this on? Because we really enjoy coming to Perth every year to sell garlic and to promote this industry. So I'm sure there'll be more discussions yet, but still very early.
Thank you. Hey, so we move on to the closed session. And can I have Councillor Orfield move a motion in relation to that, please?
Moved by myself that the committee of the whole move into closed session at 6:37 p.m. to discuss Perthworks 63 Halton Street site plan control application number SPC 01-2025 in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239, education and training session. 3.1, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board.
Thank you. Before I call the question on that, I'm just going to confirm with the CEO, will we be in the next room?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Did the report from closed session motion? If you have it available to you.
That the committee of the whole rise and report from the closed session. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yes, at 7:54 PM.
Thank you. Those in favor? It's unanimous. In closed session, the committee of the whole approved closed session meeting minutes from February the 4th, 2025, received education and training and discussed a position and plan in addressing site plan control application number SBC 01/2025 for the Perth Works property located at 63 Halton Street. And adjournment, please. Councillor Smith.
You
Can you read the adjournment, please?
You're adjourning the meeting?
Oh, okay. Moved by myself that the committee of the whole meeting held on March 4, 2025, adjourn at 7:54 PM.
Thank you. Those in favor? And thank you and good